Some castles impress you with their size. Chenonceau seduces you with its reflection. Built across the River Cher, this chateau looks almost as if it is floating between water, gardens, and sky. During the day, Chenonceau is graceful and elegant, but by night, when the light fades and most visitors have left, the gardens begin to glow and become something much more intimate. And what makes Chenonceau even more fascinating is that this is not only a beautiful castle, it is a castle shaped by some of the most powerful women in French history. Diane de Poitiers made it elegant, Catherine de Medici made it royal, and over the centuries, Chenonceau became known as the Ladies' Castle, a place of love, rivalry, beauty, power, and quiet drama. And when you visit it by night with only a small group around you, those stories feel much closer. You are not just looking at rooms and gardens, you are stepping into one of France's most elegant dramas. Before you even enter Chenonceau, the third most visited castle in France, you understand that this castle is different from many others in the Loire Valley. It does not rise like a fortress from the forest. It does not try to overwhelm you with towers, walls, or royal scale. Chenonceau is more subtle than that. It stretches gently across the River Cher, with its pale stone mirrored in the water, and the whole place feels almost too balanced to be real. This is one of the reasons Chenonceau feels so romantic. It is not only a castle you admire from a distance, it is a castle that invites you to slow down. The history of Chenonceau begins long before the elegant chateau we see today. There was once a medieval castle on this site, but most of it disappeared. One important part still remains, the Tour des Marques, the old tower near the entrance. It is a small reminder that this place once belonged to an older, more defensive world. But the Chenonceau we visit today belongs to the Renaissance. It belongs to a world of gardens, galleries, art, court life, and refined architecture. And from the beginning, women played a very important role in shaping it. The current chateau was built in the early 16th century by Thomas Bohier, a financial officer under King Francis I. But his wife, Catherine Brissonnet, was deeply involved in the construction, especially because her husband was often away. She helped supervise the work and influence the atmosphere of the chateau. And this detail matters because it sets the tone for the entire story of Chenonceau. Women were not just living here, they were shaping the place. That is why Chenonceau became known as the Ladies' Castle. Over time, several remarkable women left their mark on it, and each one added another layer to its identity. The most famous chapter begins with Diane de Poitiers. Diane was the favorite of King Henry II. She was known for her intelligence, elegance, beauty, and influence at the French court. Henry II gave Chenonceau to her, and at first, this sounds like the beginning of a romantic story. A king, the woman he loved, and a chateau over a river. But Chenonceau was never only a soft love story. It was also a place of ambition, prestige, and power. Diane did not simply enjoy the chateau. She transformed it. She created one of the famous gardens, and most importantly, she had the bridge built across the River Cher. That bridge changed everything. Without it, Chenonceau would still have been beautiful, but with it, the chateau became unforgettable. It no longer stood beside the river, it crossed it. This is what gives Chenonceau its most iconic image, a castle that seems to glide over water. But Diane's time here did not last forever. When Henry II died in 1559, his widow Catherine de Medici took control, and one of the first things she did was force Diane to give up Chenonceau. And this is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Catherine did not erase Diane's work, she answered it. Diane had built the bridge. Catherine transformed it into the Grand Gallery. Diane had created a garden. Catherine created her own. So Chenonceau became almost like a silent conversation between two women, the king's favorite and the king's widow, the beloved and the queen, elegance and authority, desire and power. From the outside, the gallery over the River Cher is the most spectacular part of Chenonceau. It is long, elegant, and perfectly placed above the water. During the day, it looks graceful, but in the evening, when the light softens and the river becomes darker, the whole chateau changes mood. The arches become more dramatic, the reflection becomes deeper, and the building starts to feel almost theatrical. The architecture is already romantic in daylight, as anywhere you turn, you see the river from each room. But after dark, the quiet and the lighting make the story feel closer. You can imagine court guests arriving, candles glowing inside the gallery, music, whispered conversations, and the movement of long dresses through the rooms. Chenonceau does not feel like a frozen monument. It feels like a story that still has an atmosphere. And once you go inside, that feeling continues. The interior of Chenonceau is not only decorative. It feels like a walk through different chapters of the same drama. Each room gives you another piece of the chateau's personality. You move from royal elegance to political power, from intimate bedrooms to grand spaces, from love stories to grief. One of the most important rooms is Diane de Poitiers' bedroom. This is where you feel the presence of the woman who made Chenonceau famous for elegance and romance. Diane was not queen, but she had enormous influence. Her taste shaped the chateau. Her relationship with Henri II turned Chenonceau into one of the most symbolic royal gifts in France. But just a little further into the visit, the story changes. Catherine de Medici's presence feels stronger and more political. Catherine was not only Henry II's widow, she was one of the most powerful women in France. After her husband's death, she became deeply involved in the affairs of the kingdom during a difficult and unstable period. At Chenonceau, Catherine created a place of royal display. She organized celebrations, received important guests, and used the chateau as a residence of influence. Her rooms remind us that Chenonceau was not only romantic, it was also strategic. And that detail changes the way you understand Chenonceau. From the outside, it may look delicate and almost dreamlike, but inside, decisions were made, influence was exercised, power was managed quietly. Chenonceau is beautiful, but it is not fragile. Then comes the room that almost every visitor remembers, the gallery over the Cher. It is long, bright, symmetrical, with windows on both sides and a black and white floor that gives the whole space a very elegant rhythm. Walking through it feels different from walking through any other room because you know the river is flowing beneath you. There is something very special about standing inside a room suspended above water, looking through the windows, and realizing that the chateau is not only beside the river, it is part of it. But Chenonceau has not only seen beauty and celebration, it has also seen pain. During World War I, the gallery was used as a hospital ward. Injured soldiers were treated inside the chateau, transforming one of its most elegant spaces into a place of care and suffering. Later, during World War II, the River Cher marked a boundary line. Because Chenonceau crossed the river, the chateau became symbolically important, with one side connected to occupied territory and the other toward the free zone. So the gallery is not only beautiful, it is layered with history. It has seen celebration, suffering, danger, and survival. And this is what makes Chenonceau more moving than many visitors expect. It is not romantic, only because it looks pretty. It is romantic because it carries so many human stories. Another part of the interior that is worth noticing is the kitchen area. The kitchens are built down near the piers of the chateau, close to the river, and they give you a completely different feeling from the elegant rooms above. This makes Chenonceau feel more real. It was not only a place of queens, favorites, and kings, it was also a place where people cooked, carried, cleaned, organized, and kept everything alive. Then, the mood changes again in the bedroom of Louise de Lorraine. Louise was the wife of King Henry III. After he was assassinated, she withdrew into mourning, and her room at Chenonceau is one of the most unusual and emotional spaces in the chateau. It is darker and more solemn than the other rooms, adding another layer to Chenonceau. Because this castle is not only about love, beauty, and rivalry, it is also about loss. After visiting the interior, the gardens complete the experience. At Chenonceau, the gardens are not just decoration. They are part of the story. Diane de Poitiers had her garden. Catherine de Medici created hers. And even today, when you walk outside, you can feel that these gardens have different personalities. Diane's garden feels open, elegant, and confident. It gives you beautiful views toward the chateau and the river. The formal lines, symmetry, and raised terraces create a feeling of control and refinement. It is not a wild garden. It is a garden designed to impress. Catherine's garden feels more intimate. It is smaller, closer to the chateau, and it has a different mood. It feels less like a public statement and more like the Queen's personal answer. But it is important to know what to expect. If you imagine endless blooming gardens full of flowers everywhere, you may be a little disappointed. We chose April partly because we expected more blossoms and a stronger spring garden feeling. The estate was beautiful, of course, but Chenonceau's famous gardens are formal French-style gardens. Their beauty comes more from structure than from wild color. It comes from symmetry, carefully trimmed greenery, elegant paths, and the way the gardens frame the chateau. So do not choose your date only because you expect huge flower displays. Come for the architecture, the history, the river, the garden's elegance, and the atmosphere. And if you visit by night, the garden experience becomes less about flowers and much more about mood. The paths become quieter, the chateau begins to glow, the river darkens, and suddenly the gardens feel like part of a scene, not just a place to walk through. This is why the night experience works so well for a romantic Loire Valley trip. During the day, you admire Chenonceau. By night, you feel it. And if you can, this is my first practical recommendation. Book Chenonceau by night in advance. We chose a guided visit with a small group of around 20 people, and that made a big difference. The experience felt calmer, more personal, and more emotional. You are not rushing. You are listening to the guide, walking through the rooms, seeing the gardens as the light changes, and slowly understanding why Chenonceau is so special. The second tip is to give Chenonceau enough time. Do not treat it as a quick stop between two bigger castles. Chenonceau is not huge in the same way as Chambord, but it has many layers. You need time for the exterior views, the rooms, the gallery, the kitchens, the gardens, the river, and the atmosphere around the estate. If you are doing the night experience, it can become around a 3-hour visit. This is a place where rushing would be a mistake. Chenonceau reveals itself slowly. The third tip is to make food part of the experience. The Loire Valley is not only about castles, it is also about villages, wine, local food, and slow meals. Around Chenonceau and the wider Touraine area, you can find traditional French restaurants as well as those listed in the Michelin Guide. If you are visiting as a couple, plan a proper lunch or dinner instead of just grabbing something quickly between attractions. A good meal before or after Chenonceau can make the whole day feel more complete. Either way, do not make the itinerary too packed. Romantic travel needs space. The fourth tip is to try a troglodyte accommodation, especially if you're staying around Amboise. This was one of the most memorable choices we made on our Loire Valley trip. We stayed in a troglodyte apartment in the Amboise area, and it gave the whole experience a much stronger sense of place. These are homes carved into the soft limestone rock of the region, and they feel completely different from a standard hotel room. They are quiet, intimate, a little unusual, and very atmospheric. Exactly the kind of accommodation that fits a romantic Loire Valley itinerary. After visiting castles like Chenonceau, it felt special to come back to a place that was also connected to the landscape and history of the region. Not royal, not grand, but warm, private, and memorable. And for couples, this kind of stay adds something extra to the trip. So is Chenonceau worth adding to a romantic Loire Valley itinerary? Absolutely. Because Chenonceau by day is beautiful. But Chenonceau by night feels like stepping inside the story.